Welcome to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. This is a show about pushing through obstacles and hard times in order to live a happy and fulfilled life. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's grow. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. As always, it's a pleasure to have you, and shout out to my executive producer, Jas Rosales, the man with the plan behind this podcast as well. And we're excited to continue doing these Zoom interviews, allowing us to connect with people across the country, but also staying close to the roots of Greenville, South Carolina, where this podcast is filmed. And of course, if you're in Greenville, you already know who my guest is today. Jas Rosales on the podcast. It's a great blessing to have you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's always great to see your face, and you're always smiling, which is so contagious. So thank you.
Nice. Hey, listen, if there's anything you're going to catch from me, I'd rather you catch the good vibes than anything
I
else.
know, right?
Pun intended. Not to make light of a tough situation for some folks, but of course, we like to stay positive and have some fun. For anybody that might not be in the Greenville, South Carolina area, shout out to our listeners in Germany. I see y'all over there. France, appreciate you guys supporting. But they might not have had the pleasure of meeting you, Jass. So why not tell them who you are really quick and what it is you do?
Of course. Well, my name is Jas Rosales, that he said. And yes, Jas, it is short for Jasmine. I just go by Jas. It's just easier to communicate. I was born in New York, but I'm half Panamanian, Guatemalan. So pure Latina. Spanish is my first language. And I currently own a business. It's called Just Another Season Productions. So we do a lot of marketing, advertisement, for a lot of small owners. We've definitely gotten into a very great niche right now, which has been real estate. The real estate industry has become a big passion of mine. I've always wanted to invest in that arena. So being able to help real estate agents grow their ROIs and their businesses has been great. And it's just been a fun ride right now. It's been difficult, I'm not gonna lie to you, but definitely the business has picked up, and I'm glad that people are just appreciating each other more, especially now, like we recently talked about, just kind of virtually coming together. So, and I'm an actress, singer, songwriter. I mean, I love it all. I love the arts. Anything that's production, I'm there. Yeah.
Someone say production? Someone say production? I'm on my way. And we were talking about before the podcast how important family was for you. Mm-hmm. And I think my first question, because when you say Spanish was your first language, I love asking this to a lot of my friends who have Spanish as their first language. How did you learn English?
Well, that's a good question. I think I learned it in school. I mean, just kind of hearing it, and then you just kind of put words together, or sometimes you assimilate and you get some of the concepts of what people are saying through body language. So I talk with my hands. Yeah. So I kind of just get the idea and just kind of go. It's just body language and things like that. Like, I can't tell you, well, this is exactly how it happened. But it was just listening a lot and listening to a lot of English soaps, as crazy as that sounds. Just a lot of English TV.
Yeah. Well, I had an idea that it had to do with TV because a good friend of mine, he learned English by watching Scooby-Doo. So that's why I always ask that, because I get an interesting answer, which usually does have to do with someone's favorite show. So soap operas. I'll give that one to General Hospital. Yeah. That was my jam. So talk about, I guess, being from New York, coming to Greenville, South Carolina, and getting on an entrepreneurial kind of, I want to say, role. Mm-hmm. Where does that bug come from? Where does that, I guess, that itch start? Was it at a young age? Were you always doing this, or was it something recent?
Well, to be honest with you, I've always had that inside of me. And I had the example of my parents. My parents were they were never business owners, but they were very hard workers. And one of the biggest things in my family is, you're going to have to work hard for what you want to attain in life, right? There's no easy road and there's no shortcut that ends to the goal that you eventually want for yourself and your family. So I've seen that with my grandmother, the way she hustled, just taking care of us as my mother went out to work and hustled growing up. And it was and my dad, I mean, hours and hours he spent in just learning his craft. He didn't really have a lot of schooling perhaps, but he was very attentive to learn to perfect his craft. So we moved here to New York. It was very difficult for me. I grew up with the roots of theater and all of that. Like I sung, I wrote music and all of that in New York and carried that here. But it was different. It was a different environment for me because in New York, the speed of life is different. The diversity is different. The way you communicate with one each other was pretty normal for me. Here, it wasn't the same way. So it was very trying to learn this new culture, trying to be politically correct. Like there was a lot of things that I've had to do differently. And then it happened that even in trying to do that, I offended more people than I wanted to, you know? So it was just really getting to know people here and things like that. But eventually I decided to go into the legal aspect of the world. So worked as a paralegal for many years, due to personal experiences with my cousins and things like that. Did law for many years, and then I went into corporate law. So became a compliance officer of a franchise company. But I still had that eagerness of, oh my gosh, I want to do something for me, right? I found my most biggest passion when I worked in different movies, Hollywood movies, and that was, oh my gosh, it was great. Being able to work with A-lister celebrities was amazing. And then from there, running small businesses here, like being the right arm of several small business owners, helping them with their marketing stuff. But again, when you have that inside passion, you need to kind of get out, like it's really hard for you to work for somebody else when that little thing is inside of you. So last year I decided to just branch out and use all of my gifts and assets and build my business. And like everything hasn't been easy at all.
Yeah.
It hasn't been easy.
I can imagine. And that's really the biggest jump and the biggest risk is because, I mean, you end up getting to a spot where you realize that so many people are investing in you and they're paying for you. So why not invest in yourself if other companies have taken that leap? There were a lot of things I wanted to unpack. I mean, we start with the work ethic that we get from parents, but that kind of transitioned. I remember when we were talking about our light. And I mentioned that because just like I'm sure you were shining as a paralegal and in corporate law, and then you got onto the movie set and you saw all these bright lights around you. You said, "This is where I finally fit in," And now, and I'm talking about the bright lights not as the lights, but as the people. And what we realize is sometimes when we're in an environment where the lights might not be as bright, we dim ourselves. How hard was it to kind of like go from a transition of no longer dimming your light, of being apologetic for who you are, and actually being comfortable as Jass that we all know and love?
Yeah, it takes a process, Ted. It really does, because initially we try to fit in, right? We try to be liked by other people. That's just kind of where we gravitate. We want to hear those gratifications and to be, to know that we are loved and we're cared about. But at the end of the day, I feel like every hurdle we go through, you obtain your own jewels, right? And in those jewels, eventually you'll find your biggest gem, which in reality is yourself. And you grab those jewels and you just built on that, and it, like you said, it built a very crisp, shiny gem, and at some point you can withhold your gift. I feel that's an injustice to the world and the people around you to limit yourself because of somebody else's stigma of who you're supposed to be, of how you're supposed to talk, how are you supposed to act. So many times I've been told, Jass, you're just too much. Your energy is too much. Jass, you're too loud. You're too, right? And at the end of the night, it does, if you're not mentally like prepared for that, like there's times I was like, really, God, like I wish I was a little bit different then. I wish I was accommodating. I wish I was more,
Yeah.
But when you try to be something that you're not, it's just not fair to you. It takes more energy to be something that you're not than to just be yourself and not even have to worry about what anybody else thinks. Yeah. And I think that when you live the truth, there's freedom in that. And then everything you do is become passionate. And it's like, it's like naturally just falls out your fingers, effortless.
Yeah.
And you just have to own who you are,
I love the quote by Nietzsche. I think he said, "Those who were caught dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music." And And the thing I love about that quote, it's one of my favorite quotes because, you know, I know that feeling. One of my favorite things to do is dance. Like, and I'm not talking about the proper technique, ballet dance or jazz dance. I'm talking about no training whatsoever. I'm just out there moving my hips, having a good time, smiling and throwing my
Yeah.
arms around type dancing. And I remember at a very young age, someone was like, oh, stop showing off. And I stopped dancing that way for a very, very long time. And then when I got a little older and I might have had a little alcohol, might have been a little inebriated, but I let my dance out again and I'm just having fun. And someone was like, man, you look so happy when you dance. It makes me happy. And that was my first transition into, well, by me being who I am, I can be happy and other people can enjoy themselves too. I mean, that sounds like a win-win if I've ever heard it. I want to
Yeah.
talk about the time you spent as a paralegal, because I know we've had a lot in common. I think we spoke about this when we sat down for lunch a while back. I worked at a law firm also doing billing. Though I'm thankful for the job and I was thankful for the opportunity at the time, it was not for me. What were those years like as a paralegal and in corporate law, kind of knowing that your gifts were being, as you said before, withheld from the world?
Like you said, it's an experience that I needed to live. I enjoy the people that I helped, especially being bilingual, having the both languages. It definitely became a huge asset for me. The problem again was with, you know, the responsibility you have with yourself to just not work underneath somebody else, not have to, you know, work a 9 to 5, and then you do more. And sometimes, well, being a paralegal is not a 9 to 5 job. You work almost like 24/7. So let's just get that straight, right? The burden of the attorney becomes your burden. They just get the credit for their hard work, right?
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, though, like I think it's my aspirations that always made the journey very difficult because I wanted more. I wanted to earn more. I wanted to be more, and I couldn't because I was capped. Right? Just like always, you're just capped. This is how much you were willing to pay you. And then a lot of it is, you know, you have to have so much accolades and degrees and this and that. And I just wanted to be me and be able to use that because I don't believe you can be, you know, you have to be successful. You have to have all of the accolades and all the recognitions and all the things. I mean, it's always nice to have, but I feel like it's from within, your essence from within, and that's what attracts people, and that's what makes you successful. So I loved my experience there. I learned so much right when I came out of paralegal school and graduated as one. I still use it once in a while. So it's been a great asset to have. And, you know, I did a lot of criminal law and personal injury stuff. And still people ask me, hey, Jazz, can you please tell me the process before I hire somebody else, you know, or blah, blah, blah. And asking me for referrals and whatnot. So it's useful. Right. And even in my own journey, any legal issues hopefully I don't have, but, you know, I already know how to respond either way. It's just simpler, you know, when you know it, and it's always an asset to have. I don't take anything from it. Like, for example, like I don't underestimate the opportunity that I had. I think it was a valuable experience, but it was just an experience that had to come to its term, you know, for me to be where I am right now.
Yeah, and I think the dots always connect in hindsight, as they did for me, in terms of at the time, me personally, it wasn't a joyous time for me working at the law firm, and that has nothing to do with the firm, it has nothing to do with my boss, the people I worked with. They were all wonderful and phenomenal.
Yeah.
For me, it was just my personal headspace. But looking back, there are skills that I did get from my time there that have been so valuable and so applicable to what I do now in today's world. So I am thankful for the experience. Speaking of that experience, I want to jump into kind of now recent with everything you've been doing. We mentioned the entrepreneurial spirit and how you mentioned, I wanted to talk about you said it and I had to write it down, real estate and production. Because Jess and I mean, and I've noticed a lot more of these videos on YouTube. Jess and I will turn on YouTube and just play houses. Like we'll just play houses after houses. And I think the real estate business should be paying attention to a little bit more production and how it can not only set them apart from their competition, but really kind of give folks an experience before they even become a buyer.
Yes, 100%. And the thing is that I'm gonna go back to why I niched it to kind of that industry and what I'm
Yeah.
doing. Growing up, for me, it was always my dream to make sure that my mother and my parents were well taken care of, right? That eventually that their houses is paid, that all of I can buy them a house that they really truly like, can retire in and whatnot. And I've seen always in TV, these big, beautiful houses, and, you get enamored with it. And then you start learning how important an investment in real estate is. Millionaires, billionaires, their big pocket or their dime is in real estate. And, it's just, I love seeing houses. Like
Mhm.
I have friends that are in the real estate business that like luxury homes. They just let me walk in and just, I'm like, oh my God, and one day I will like be able to afford something like this. And the people like in my, minority industries, there's so much education that needs to be like provided by these professionals to allow them to say like, hey, just because you're Latino, just because you're Black, or just because you're Asian doesn't mean that this is just for a certain market. Like, this is why you should invest in something like this. This is what it means for the legacy that you live behind.
Mhm.
So I've always loved production, obviously coming from a theatrical background, right? Coming from movies and acting and writing, that's always part of my passion. And into the marketing and advertisement arena, I do all the writing. I recently hired a fulfillment team. We're doing a lot of graphic designs and everything. I'm investing in me and perfecting my craft. So all of it is using my gifts, and when you hear the success stories of my clients, it brings me joy,
Mhm.
because then, I'm like, dang, I'm helping your business grow, and then you're helping me grow my business, right? So business owner arena, we came into that. And then just recently I was like, let me just like, there's this real estate thing in me. So let me go with, helping real estate agents to like get that market. And I want them to be also comfortable with meeting other Latino leads, meeting other minority families that they can help, diversifying the way they do business. I started to do Zoom calls like you, right, with professionals, educational platform of let's teach these people, right? Let's teach community the perception that real estate agents have, what the process should look like for them. And they're very excited. They're excited about that too. So like, it's always, you have to think out of the box. Your production doesn't have to be thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars. I mean, sometimes it's just a quality production that you want, and just launch it on YouTube, launch it on Facebook, launch it on things. Live, so important,
Yeah.
be the face of your thing. And the problem I've been running into a lot is that a lot of people are shy, camera shy, right? But if you're an entrepreneur, you can't be camera shy. You know what I'm saying? So it's just been fun. I cannot deny it. Where I am right now, it's been fun because I'm learning more about the industry. Who knows? In the future, I'll invest in a couple of properties and do it myself. And there's just so many plans that I have, and I'm excited about it. And it's like everything is accommodating to that point.
Yeah.
Everything's coming together.
Yeah, and I love seeing that because I've known from day one meeting you, you've always dreamed big, and since I've met you, I've just seen the growth continue. So as big as you dream, I'm like, yeah, you're probably gonna surpass that. You might want to keep
I know. I
dreaming big.
hope so.
You
I
know?
hope so. Gotta win. Gotta
You,
win.
yeah, and you seem so in touch with the fact that you're such a people person and feeding off the energy of others. Where do you think that comes from?
Look, I don't know. That's a question that you got to ask my mom. I remember just growing up, I think it's always been in me. I used to use the broom, like the guitar, the vacuum, like the microphone. And I used to like talk to nothing but the living room sofas, used to hide behind curtains and talk on the phone like I was talking with people. Like it's just embedded. I think that's how God created me to be. I love to make a difference in people's lives by just talking to them. It was a time in my life that was very difficult because I grew up with a angry father, right? He's definitely changed now, but back then it was have people now that I see that share their story, and the impact that has when you're able to free yourself from it is huge. but again, it's a learning process, right? You learn from your experiences, and I love people. I love when people are able to just be a little vulnerable. Like just recently, I had a Zoom call with a young lady, and we were talking about how sometimes we hide behind these business facades.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can't act a certain way, you can't talk a certain way, you can't dress a certain way, you can't, like everything is so programmed. And I think that there's a time and place for everything. But sometimes you just need to be chill and honest about the situation. You know, you just need to be yourself, and you know, it's your personal brand, but your brand shouldn't shift too drastically. I think people that you come and encounter with, if you're going to do business with them, you're going to have to do business with you, who you are, you know, because your brand is 24/7.
Yeah.
So I feel like it's all part of getting to know who you are as a person. And when I feel more comfortable when another person can just talk to me about their story, and then I can say, dang, I can relate to that. I'm not alone in the journey that, you know, we've embarked. And that's amazing. And look, people are very skeptical about trusting other people and other human beings, especially with everything that's going on. But I feel that regardless, you're going to be critiqued, whether you're good, you're bad, or you're ugly. It's just a reality of it. But when you learn to love yourself in all facets of it, telling your story sometimes is it's just a breeze. Like for me, it's just become second nature because it's my story to tell. It's my, you know, it's me, it's my journey. So you can't tell me how wrong I was for doing such a, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
what are you going to judge me for? Like,
Absolutely.
you know?
Yeah, and that's kind of where the No Rain No Rainbow story started. Was the very first episode I kind of just shared. I said, hey, listen, this is who I am. I almost failed out of college my freshman year, bounced back from that. I got diagnosed with ulcerative colitis, which is an autoimmune disease, landed me in the hospital for 2 weeks, bounced back from that. And I've made a lot of mistakes and I continue to make them. But like here I am on this microphone, still talking to you guys and absorbing those mistakes and realizing that they're kind of the stepping stones, the failures that got me here. And, you know, it's the thing that I'm thankful for. At the time, it sucked. At the time, it wasn't good.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
you know, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. At the first broadcast of my podcast, I was like, yeah, after my freshman year of college, I had a 1.9 GPA. I used to hide that because I didn't want people to think of my intelligence being less than what I thought it was.
Yes.
You know, but now I'm like, I could, that don't care if you know what my GPA was, because that's not a reflection of my intelligence. That was just a reflection of my effort at the time, which was lacking.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
with that being said, I think we've all gone through those storms. And a question I love to ask on this podcast is, what's one of the biggest storms you've been through personally, whether it be in business, whether it be in your life, that gives you confidence to kind of take on the storms that might come in your future?
I think one of the biggest ones was the dealings with my father, the relationship that I had with him. Like I've always been a daddy's girl, even through the trials, right? And it's just a matter of like with him and other factors of that. There's a lot of depravity that came out of other situations in my life. I've seen a lot of violence into my life, and again, it was all about learning forgiveness. It was all about amending, like learning myself and mending those wounds and trying to really heal, right? But of all of that is learning forgiveness for the other person, also forgiveness with yourself. Like, you know, letting go of guilt, letting go, because hurt people. Now, it doesn't justify the action, because I still think that there comes a time that you have to be accountable for the decisions that you make, regardless of the traumas that you go by, because we have the responsibility to break the cycle, but we have to want that for ourselves. So, you know, it's just really mending. If I can mend the relationship I have with my father, then every other relationship and other connection should be an easy, breezy, you know, thing to do, because he's one of the people that you want to cultivate that relationship the most. He's family. He's, you know, regardless of the mistakes that we do, you know, we always go back to those core values. You know, you honor your father and your mother. Yeah. And that's just the way I was raised. You know, you don't hold things over their heads. They have their own stories and they have their own justifications and reasons. But again, it's like you learn to love. You know, you learn to love, and when you learn to love, you love yourself. And when you love yourself, you learn to love others. And that's just been one of my biggest things, is just to be an overcomer, you have to overcome your own insecurities and your own fears.
Yeah.
And that's always been a challenge. And, I'm still overcoming. And you overcome your even comparison to other people, because I tell people, and I preach this all the time, I'm like, I don't believe in any competition, because the biggest competition I have is myself. I still have things that I have to work with. And, even if you and I did the exact same thing, I will root for you, because at the end of the night, you will never do it the way I do it, and I will never do it the way you do it. You bring an authenticity to the table that's different, that's still going to appeal your audience, right? And when we learn to embrace it, we learn to embrace community, and then we learn to, and it's just easier. You have these tools. Like, I feel light, and I'm light because before I used to have this big burden on my shoulders, but now it's like, I mean, what else? You know what I'm saying? Whatever else comes my way is just, you deal with it level-headed. I'm not really an emotional person. I kind of say things how they are, and I kind of level head everything. Like, that's the only thing I'm analytical about.
Yeah.
But besides that, I'm like a free wing, like whatever. Like, I go, take the day by.
That's really what it's all about too, is because you can't give what you don't have. So to give love, you need to first have it, and you need to have love for yourself. And I think there's a lot of healing that has to happen before that, because when you mention insecurities and you mention the things that get to people, really those are, a great friend of mine, we were going for a hike, and he was talking about, he's like, those are buttons that people push. And when they know they're there, push them. But what if you got rid of the button? You're the operator after all. So if you walk into a room and there's a big red button, a white room, and just a big red button says, please don't touch the button. I don't know about you. I'm pushing that button.
Oh, yeah.
I'm pushing that button. But so you can't really blame people if they push a button that's there. But what you can do is you can unplug the button. You can get rid of the button, or you can rise above and say, you know what? Yeah, that is a pretty nice red button, isn't it? And you can push
own it. Yeah.
So when we can get to that level of accepting and loving ourselves, owning for the mistakes that we've made in the past, knowing that they don't define our future, and we could just kind of say, hey, this is me, and this is what I'm here for. You down to ride, or you not? I mean, because I'm about to go. I think that's a place that a lot of people, I really want the listeners to take that home, that when you get there, life does become easier. The weight does get lifted, because the happiness and joy of others is not your responsibility. Just take care of yourself, and then give as much as you can.
Absolutely.
With that being said, what are some of the rainbows you're currently chasing? I know the big focus with the real estate, with the production, and helping them, help the clients, but what are the rainbows for Jas coming in the future?
Well, I'm working in the production myself, just kind of me, and outlining kind of my journey in my business. And that's something that's, well, kind of my storyline. That's something that's going to be coming up in YouTube pretty soon. And to be honest, my big rainbow is just growing this business to the point that, I mean, this is my dream, right? Because this will provide me the avenues that I want to keep acting and keep doing all those recording things that I'm so passionate about. And this is something that I can say is mine, that I worked so hard for. So this business is kind of where my passion is embedded, and it's what I want to see. And the reason I say my business is because I promised my grandmother that everything that I was going to do was going to be for her. And I'm hoping that she sees me succeed where I want to before, God willing, anything happens to her. If there's a weak spot, is that lady. And everything I do is really for her. I mean, there's so many things that she's done for all of her grandkids. And if this is a little bit that I can give back to her, and, it would mean the world to me. Yeah. So seeing that I'm success story, seeing that I've overcome obstacles and we've made it out, I mean, for me would be a huge blessing, and I can die happy knowing that, man, we worked so hard for something, and grandma here, here's this, or here's your home, or here's that, where money is not an issue as much anymore, and I can make her happy and she can be happy.
That's amazing. Yeah. Hey, this podcast right here, this episode, this one's for grandma.
Yeah.
This one's for grandma.
Thank you. Abuela, it's for you.
Yeah. We love you.
Yeah. I'm a softie for grandma. I can't say that.
Hey,
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. I think family is really the core of what this is all for, right? This is all what
Mm-hmm.
we go for and what we do it all for. With that being said, how can folks reach out to you and connect with you, Jazz? I know that you're in your hand with a lot of things. Don't think I didn't see you were on the set of Bad Boys for Life. No, you don't know how jealous I am that that you were on the set for Bad Boys for Life.
Yeah, it was great. What can I say? It was so funny because I was telling people the first time I met Will on set, it was remarkable because he was like right in front of me. And all I saw, his sweat was just glistening. You think sweat can glisten? I thought the man was made out of wax this whole time. Because you go to like Madame Tussauds or things like that. Like, is he real? Is it like
Yeah.
really right? It was crazy, but it was fun. I mean, like again, that's what I love. I love those type of things, and we had fun just getting to meet them and know them, and it's almost
Yeah.
like your family. He was
Yeah.
very humble. It was great. It was a great
That's
experience
awesome.
overall. It was
That's awesome. I'm jealous. I'm hoping they make it like another one because like me and my buddy Dave Birnbaum were like, we keep trying to
awesome.
be on the Bad Boy. Like that's our favorite movie. Bad
Yeah,
Boys
this is
1,
the movie
2,
though.
and for life.
Yeah.
But yeah, how can folks connect with you and maybe see some of the work that you're doing, or maybe get some of you can maybe see some people and help them out?
Yeah, sure thing. You can visit me and my Facebook page at Just Another Season Productions, or you can go ahead and friend me as Jas Rosales, Jas Rosales. You can see on my Instagram, Jas Productions 89, and my YouTube, Jas Rosales. You'll see a lot of my music, a lot of my interviews in Spanish. You'll have it all there, and there's more actually coming up. And you can always shoot me an email at info@jazzrosales.com or call me at 864-704-4931. I think that's what it
Nice.
is.
Nice.
Yeah.
Left the number out there too. Well, I'm going to put that all in the show notes so folks can kind of get to it easy. And if they're listening it to on the iTunes app, they can kind of scroll to it right now and tap any one of those, and it will take them straight to contact you.
Yeah.
So.
Hey, the number is actually 864. Hold on, I'm telling you, 409. It's a new number I got for the business.
Nice.
409-7431.
7431. It's like that. You ever see the radios where they're talking to this at the end? It's like, all right, for more information, call 864-409-7434. That's 864-409-7431.
Yes, yes. But
Awesome.
just in case, start out.
Jazz, thank you so much. And to the listeners that made it to the end, there was a lot of value to be taken from this episode. I think you're going to have to go back and listen to it again. I'm so glad that Jazz spent this time with us and shared some of her knowledge along the way. First, getting that work ethic from her parents. It's so important that we get our work ethic, or we see somebody else that we emulate. Doesn't always have to be a parent. It could also be a mentor, but it's great to get that work ethic from somebody around us. And also falling in love with yourself. Jazz said it herself. She says, find your gem. You are the gem, and it's not okay to hide your gifts from the world. Share them with the world. These are your words, not mine, Jazz, just so you know. Also, the fact that you could look back at something, Jazz, and you mentioned you were just thankful and happy with the people you helped, that just shows your heart to our listeners. And last but not least, that your brand is 24/7. That's a nugget I think got by a lot of people. I want to make sure that drove home. You might not think anyone's watching, but in the digital age, everybody's watching. Your brand is 24/7. Jazz, thank you one more time.
No, thank you, Tay. I appreciate it. Thank you for having me.
No problem. And to the listeners, thank you. Like we always say at the end of the episode, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't have the pleasure without a little pain. Love you, Grandma. Let's grow. The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast is recorded at Camaraderie, a collective workspace in Greenville, South Carolina, right off the Swamp Rabbit Trail. If you're looking for a place to grow your business, network with other professionals, and establish your own workspace, Camaraderie is the place to do so.